Donald Trump is the most corrupt president
These
in
are
American
two of Senator Bernie Sanders' political TV advertisements. At first glance, seemingly the same.
And so is the solution.
The one on the left first aired in Iowa in November last year. And the other on the right first aired in North Dakota the day after former Vice President Joe Biden swept a string of southern states on Super Tuesday.
Bernie Sanders.
Notice the difference? The most recent version included images of African Americans, but the one on the left that first aired more than 4 months earlier did not. Making subtle changes to the same ad is common practice with some of the presidential campaigns. And like others we tracked, this Bernie Sanders ad called Belong to Us saw at least 6 different changes as it moved through the campaign calendar. Using political ad tracker Kantar CMAG, along with Facebook and Google's transparency reports, we tracked some of the candidates' ads to see how they evolved over the campaign cycle.
A good political ad is a mix of artistry, math, and science.
Steve Israel served in Congress for 16 years. For 4 of those years, he was the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and part of his job was to make sure political ads resonated in specific markets. He is now the director of Cornell University's Institute of Politics and Global Affairs and teaches a course that includes dissecting political advertising.
An effective political ad has to have several components. One, got to be local. It's got to have music that reflects local sensibilities. The characters have to project a certain tone. A hard-driving, aggressive New Yorker is not going to do well endorsing a congresswoman from Iowa in that media market. And most important, it's got to reflect data. It's got to be driven not by what some producer or a candidate thinks will work, but by what the voters themselves tell you.
When we started tracking the ads, we focused on some of the top candidates and also included President Trump. What we found is that not all of the campaigns actually had different versions of the same ad. One of the reasons you repackage ads is to save money. So when you're not bound by a tight campaign budget, you can just create new ones. According to Kantar CMAG and data from Google and Facebook, Michael Bloomberg spent at least $590 million on advertising over the course of the presidential primary race, and had no different versions of the same ad. Despite spending significantly less money, both Senator Elizabeth Warren and President Trump appeared to have no variations of the same ad. Tom Steyer, another billionaire in the race, appeared to only have one ad that had different versions. Both Biden and former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg appeared to change several of their ads, but had fewer versions than others. Out of all the ads we tracked, it was Sanders and Senator Amy Klobuchar who made the most changes. We asked the campaigns about their strategy. Warren's team chose not to comment, and while we didn't hear back from the campaigns of Biden, Buttigieg, Klobuchar and Trump, the Bloomberg team told us that having a large budget gave them the freedom to create new ads for each market. The Steyer campaign told us that the changes were made with no specific intent, and the Sanders campaign said that they tailor ads to local markets.
Fighting to raise wages, leading the fight.
We picked out several differences among the ads we tracked. We then had Israel watch some of them and analyze how the ads evolved as they followed the candidate on the campaign trail.
Okay, I'm looking at one. Bernie Sanders, what happens?
Those are the people that I will represent. No more tax breaks for billionaires. We're going to fight.
Pause. You do see in the right-hand margin of the California frame, cleverly, a little snippet of the California state flag. It's all about local flavoring. You cannot influence people when you have a boilerplate ad that is not going to resonate locally.
Across all the changes we noticed, the majority reflected the locality of where the ad was aired.
As you continue to watch the California ad, you're seeing more. So it's now pulling out away from that one woman. Now we see diversity in this frame. We see a young man. We still see young people. It's a mostly youthful crowd, which tells me that they're really trying to create this narrative that this is not an old candidate, an old campaign. We have the support of the people. And what people do we have the support of? Young people.
In Sanders' ad campaign called Growing Up, he used hospitality workers in the California and North Carolina ad, but showed factory workers in the Iowa and Nevada versions. Also in the North Carolina version, they added civil rights as one of the important issues for his campaign.
What this is telling us is that in focus groups or in polling with the demographic that Senator Sanders was trying to attract in a Super Tuesday primary, civil rights was a big deal. And so he chose to accentuate civil rights, if only for a few quick seconds. He chose to include that very graphic image in order to create a bond, a connection to those voters who care deeply about the issue.
While Joe Biden had fewer versions of the same ad, we also saw his campaign cater to the local market in South Carolina. The former vice president would go on to win the state's primary with strong support from its African-American voters.
You are seeing people, real people, authentic people, relating to Joe Biden in South Carolina with t-shirts that everybody knows came from South Carolina in a gym that is in South Carolina, and the U.S. framing could be almost anywhere in the country. And those demographics are generally chosen strategically.
100 days, 100 ways.
With Facebook versions of the candidates' ads, we mainly saw just changes to the size and other small tweaks to make them work better on social platforms. However, on Google's YouTube, we noticed some subtle differences in Sanders' growing up ad.
You're seeing a digital ad. You're seeing this tight shot of Bernie Sanders with his head kind of slumped. If you're watching a digital ad, you are engaged. You have no choice when a campaign commercial interrupts your television preferences. Take a look at it. Bernie Sanders' shoulders, right? Like, why that? Because this guy has your problems on his shoulders. That's what this tells me, and I may be reading too much into it.
So far this cycle, it's yet to be seen what new techniques might be used in the political digital advertising space. But with sophisticated political campaign companies like Michael Bloomberg's Hawkfish vowing to use its resources for the Democratic presidential nominee, experts are watching closely.
So if you are living in Kenosha County, Wisconsin, which is a swing county, voted for Obama twice and then Trump by less than a point, you're going to see hyper-local Kenosha County ads by Trump and the Democratic nominee. So both in content and visual, you're going to see very, very localized advertising in the presidential campaign.